What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the BookMine Academy. In today's video, we're going to talk about the used offer count, which is a really important metric for making sure that you're buying books that are likely to sell. They're not going to tank in price, but also to be able to kind of spot some possible opportunities when there are really low offer counts. So, Victor, what's going on, man?
What's up, Doji? I think the used offer count's really vital in making decisions on what book to buy. We're now no longer adding lines to the top of the graph on Keepa. It's a secondary line on the bottom, and it's a very vital part. So you want to make sure you tune in.
Sweet, let's jump over to BookMine and we'll see what we got. All right, so we're over here on BookMine. Of course, you're going to see a whole bunch of different products here. And, we always recommend looking at to the Keepa link. The graph is going to be a little bit bigger. Of course, if you want, you can always click the product listing, go over to Amazon. But the first thing we want to do is just kind of show you how to even get to the used offer count. So like Victor just mentioned, the used offer count is not going to be on this top graph. It's actually going to be on the bottom graph. And actually, you're not even going to be able to see that when you first sign up for Keepa. You're actually just going to see one graph like this. The way that you can see that second graph is you can click this button all the way down here at the bottom called More Historical Data. Do that, you're going to get the second graph, which has a whole bunch of other features, which we'll go over as well. But today, specifically, Victor, we're going to talk about the used offer count. So, Victor, what the heck is used offer count? What does it mean? What's like the definition?
Yeah, so basically, Keepa keeps track of how many used sellers there are at any particular point and then draws them on into a graph. So this is a picture form of the last year of how many sellers throughout the year have gone on in and out of this listing. And you can see, just like kind of the used price, it kind of goes up and down throughout the year. And typically when the used offer count goes down, the price most of the time usually follows and goes up. The correlation, it happens just like that. So used offer count goes down, the price goes up, and the other way around.
Exactly. You can kind of even see when this book was at a higher price, right? The offer count was lower. That doesn't necessarily mean the book is going to be selling at the higher price. It just means that, just simple fly here, right? It's like if there's fewer people listing the book, it just means there's less competition for the people who are listing the book. So they potentially might keep the book at a higher price. There might be less, reprices going crazy and bringing prices down. And you can actually see that's kind of what happened here when the offer count September started rising up a little bit. You can actually see downward pressure right here where we went forward and had this long repricing where the price just kind of very steadily staircase down all the way down to about $9, right? So that's exactly what we mean there. Now, Victor, can you predict for me right now? I'm going to just look at the last week's worth of data. Can you predict for me now how many people are there on this listing right now selling this?
I'm predicting there are 14 people. I mean, it's pretty easy, right? That it says it down here, 14 offers. So there's 14 different sellers. And I think we're about to cover, or we should cover, that means that there's just 14 sellers, but that doesn't necessarily mean that there's only 14 books, 14 units, because each seller can have more than one unit. And we're going to show you how to find that.
Right. So the first thing right now is you can see it says new and used 17. So remember that the used offer count was 14. So that means that the other three offers must be coming from new. But we can essentially click this button and we can come up to the filter and we're going to go ahead and click this use button. Right, and so this is going to show us the 13 other options plus this guy in stock. So that's 14. 13 plus 1 is 14. And Victor, what did you just say about not being the number of books, but just being the number? What was that again you said?
Yeah. So people will show you how much each seller has in stock. So you can see all these like small little ones. That means this seller has one. But sometimes, especially these mega sellers, will have 2, 3, even up to like 100 books in stock. So again, that it's important to know that used offer count just means how many used sellers are on it, not necessarily how much units are in stock.
Absolutely. So just to summarize, you might have 14 sellers on the listing, but there could really be like 100 copies available, right? Or there could be 14 sellers on the listing and there only be 14 copies. So that's why it's really important to make sure that you're also looking at stock quantity, which is what Victor was just mentioning. Now, you may not see that on the listing. You might come here and go, Joji, Victor, I don't see this stock quantity. How do you get that? Well, essentially what you'll need to do when you're on your Keepa account is over here, come to the top right, click on your settings button. Then you're going to come over here to this website cog. You're going to scroll all the way down to the bottom and you're going to click yes to display stock quantity on offer listing pages and refresh and you're good to go. Okay, Victor, so the last thing that we want to cover with the used offer count is how you could use it to potentially avoid selling books that could give IP complaints. So if you're not familiar with an IP complaint, essentially whoever is the publisher of the book or whoever's making the book might complain to Amazon and say, hey, this person, meaning you, doesn't have the right to sell this book. And Amazon might hit you with an IP complaint, which simply just means that they're going to deactivate your listing and there's going to be a little ding on your account. And this is just a negative thing, right? You don't want Amazon yelling at you. Honestly, no news is good news. So whenever Amazon has news for you, it's probably bad news, which is not good. But you want to try to avoid those kind of books. And you could use a used offer count to try to see when that potentially could happen. So Victor, we're looking at this used offer count graph here. Do you see any potential sign of IP complaint just looking at the last year for this book?
Actually, no. And so that's why it's really important to like really dig deep into a book just to verify the whole time this book has been out on the market to kind of see if it ever had an IP complaint. And that's why we always said the 6 months on BookMine, that gives you a taste, but you got to actually go in and dig into the data a little bit more than that just to verify you're going to buy a really good book.
Okay. So what made you so confident that at least in the last year, there probably was not an IP complaint here?
That's a good question. The main point here is that the used offer count just didn't dive. Like it didn't go from like 25 to 1 because that never happens, right? And a book, nobody just suddenly wakes up and everyone decides together to buy the book. And so if that happened, that would be really a unicorn or anomaly. And there has to be a reason behind that. And typically it's because the publisher of this book has complained to Amazon and all those sellers have gotten kicked off the listing and probably got an IP complaint. And you don't want to be next.
Yeah. So let's reveal and see if you guys can figure out when that did happen here. So Victor, what are you looking here? So I'm looking at offer counts since 2018, 2020, 2021, 2020. What do you see right here, Victor?
All normal stuff. And then bam, the publisher came out and issued some warnings. All the sellers got off the listing, probably got some emails, and then it went to a much lower offer count. And from that point on, it never went back up to that higher used offer count because seasoned sellers know, oh, okay, yeah, they don't want us on that listing. And so you also need to be one of those seasoned sellers and not go on this type of listing.
Right, absolutely. Now, one thing that we'll talk about in the next video is the new offer count. But what happens, Victor, if you also see the new offer count do the exact same thing as the used offer count at the exact same time?
Further proof. Definitely further proof to not get on this listing. Even if it's dirt cheap, this is not a book to go and purchase.
Absolutely. Now, you might see, like we mentioned before, you might see little drops. Like, for example, I see this little drop right here. I mean, isn't that an IP complaint right there? February 9th to February 15th, the offer count goes from 26 down. I mean, that's a pretty big drop in offer count, right? Isn't that an IP complaint?
No. So that's a natural progression in the sales, in the used offer count. When it does something like that, it's fine. But if it just dives straight down, that's abnormal. Right. You don't want that. But if it's just slowly going down, that's perfectly fine. Don't worry about those.
Now, one really important lesson I think we should, come back to is kind of how we originally started this video, which was to the point that at a lower offer count, generally prices are higher, and at a higher offer count, generally prices are lower. Do you kind of see that pattern here when this IP complaint happened?
Yeah, right after that, once it went down to 2, the last 2 remaining sellers are out here, or the last 4 remaining sellers are out here selling it, for 4 times the price they just were, and were able to do that for a while, and there was a lot of sales going on. So those 4 sellers reaped the benefits.
Yeah, so you can see both here. You can see that on the left-hand side at a higher offer count, you can see the prices are lower, and then on the right hand, you see offer count is much lower, and the prices are much higher. So there's patterns for you to recognize. Obviously, when you're over here on BookMine, you have the supply meter, and so basically, supply meter is essentially going to look at today's offer count relative to the most recent historical past, last 6 months. What we're trying to do is tell you whether or not within the last 6 months, the offer count today is much higher than it was, much lower than it was, somewhere in the middle. That's what all these different features are going to mean. So one of the amazing things about BookMine is that you're not going to need to open up these sorts of listings to know if this is a book that has a high or a low offer count, because we just show it to you. Like, you think this isn't a normal supply, short supply, that's an oversupply. I mean, let's just for example click very oversupply, Victor. Let's just see what we look at. So for example, let's look at this Saxon book, which is probably going to be a high school book, and let's just scroll down to its keep a chart and see over the last 6 months of its offer count. I mean, Victor, what do you see?
The opposite of what you should be seeing. Basically, the used offer count is just continually rising every day, higher and higher and higher.
Okay, so you can see that was very oversupply. Let's go the exact opposite here, Victor, and let's just go to extremely short supply. Let's see if we see the exact opposite. And which one of the two, extremely short supply or extremely very oversupply, which one of those two are you going to be much more likely to want to buy?
Oh, much more excited about the extremely short supply, because that book's about to sell out and the price normally then follows pretty quickly. Look at that book. That is 14 to now just 1. There's just 1 there at the very end, which again makes BookMine that powerful. It found that one book and presented it to you. Pretty awesome.
This book's selling in the 30s pretty easily. I mean, we haven't looked at the buy box, potentially that the buy box price is higher at mid 40s, probably likely selling at that. I mean, has held some pretty good historical data. It's gone out of stock. Is this an IP complaint here?
Oh, no, that's not.
No, got to be one time large drop, literally almost every single seller, if not every single seller. That's his natural progression there. And you can see, look, someone came back in stock, boom, immediate sales range drop. Why? Because this book is not worth $4.99, it's worth $40, right?
Yeah, at least. Yeah,
at least. And then this came in at $14.93, and now this is a book that, I think this would, this is exactly going to be a close price. This is why this is not a higher BookMine score, but extremely short supply. And is that book likely to sell out there, Victor?
Well, considering there's only one seller, yeah, probably tomorrow. probably right now, it's actually probably sold out.
Someone who's on the free version probably already bought it, right? So really cool there. That's going to wrap up the used offer, count video. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure you guys continue on with the Keep Academy, because, I mean, if you're not learning valuable information, then I don't know where else you're going to learn it. Because, I mean, I feel like even when I talk to Victor, even though I know this stuff, I feel like I even learn more when I'm just talking to Victor about this stuff. So let's go on to the next video, and we'll see you there. Bye.
All right, thank you.